If you're brave enough to dive into the darkest corner of the American justice system, smash that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to witness will haunt you long after this video ends. Hit the like button if you dare, and drop a comment telling me if you could survive just one day in the place we're about to enter. Let's go. The steel door slammed shut with a sound that echoed through concrete and bone. Thomas Silverstein heard that sound for the last time in 1983, and he would never hear another door open for him again. Not until the day he died, 36 years later, having spent more than half his life in complete isolation. But Thomas wasn't locked away in just any prison. He was buried alive in the most secure, most brutal, most psychologically devastating facility ever constructed on American soil, ADX Florence, Colorado. The Alcatraz of the Rockies. America's only true Supermax prison. And once you go in, you don't come out the same person if you come out at all. The morning of November 1st, 1994, the prison officially opened its reinforced doors. Nestled in the barren high desert of Fremont County, surrounded by nothing but sagebrush and silence, ADX Florence was designed with one purpose: to break the unbreakable. This wasn't rehabilitation. This was permanent containment. The architects who designed it called it a clean version of hell. The inmates who survived it called it something far worse. Special Agent Marcus Webb of the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit stood outside the prison gates that cold November morning, his breath forming clouds in the thin mountain air. He wasn't there for a tour. He was there because 3 days earlier, a coded letter had been intercepted from inside ADX Florence, a letter that should have been impossible. The prison's mail screening was absolute. Every word written by an inmate passed through multiple security checks. Every visitor was monitored. Every phone call recorded. The prison was designed to ensure that the most dangerous criminals in America could never communicate with the outside world, could never coordinate, could never hurt anyone again. But someone had found a way. The letter was addressed to a post office box in Denver. Inside was a single handwritten note containing a series of numbers that appeared random to postal workers but set off immediate alarms when flagged by federal databases. The numbers matched coordinates, bank account routing codes, and what appeared to be a countdown. When agents traced the P.O. box, they found it had been rented under a false identity 2 months prior. The security footage showed a woman in her 30s, dark hair, sunglasses, paying in cash. She never returned. But the box had been checked 3 times, always by different people, none of whom could be identified. Agent Webb had spent 15 years hunting the worst humanity had to offer, but this case felt different. The letter had originated from inside a facility where inmates spent 23 hours a day in 7 by 12-foot concrete boxes, where every movement was monitored by cameras, where speaking to another human being was a privilege rarely granted, where madness was more common than conversation. How could someone orchestrate something from inside a tomb? Warden Patricia Caldwell met him in the security vestibule, her face carved from years of managing men whom society had given up on. "Agent Webb," she said, her voice flat and professional. "I've run this facility for 8 years. We've housed terrorists, cartel leaders, mass murderers, and bombers. Not once has anyone breached our security protocols. Not once." "Then how do you explain the letter?" Webb asked, holding up the evidence bag. Caldwell's jaw tightened. "I can't. And that terrifies me more than you know." They walked through 7 security checkpoints, each door more fortified than the last. The air inside grew colder, heavier, thick with the weight of concentrated human suffering. The silence was unnatural, oppressive. No shouting, no chaos, no typical prison noise. Just the hum of ventilation systems and the distant electronic buzz of surveillance equipment. "The letter came from H Unit," Caldwell explained as they descended another level. "Our most restricted section. 24 inmates, including the Unabomber, several 9/11 conspy, raiders, and the most violent offenders ever convicted in federal court. These men see no one but guards in full tactical gear. They have no human contact. They eat alone. They exercise alone in concrete boxes they call dog runs. If someone in H Unit managed to get a coded message out, we have a catastrophic system failure." Agent Webb's footsteps echoed as they approached the unit. Through the small reinforced window of each cell door, he could see nothing but darkness. The inmates kept their lights off, preferring the void to the harsh fluorescent glare that never truly turned off. "Who do you think sent it?" he asked. Caldwell stopped at cell H17. "If I had a guess? The man in here. Victor Arsenault." The name hit Webb like a punch to the chest. Victor Arsenault, the ghost of New Orleans. A former CIA operative turned rogue arms dealer who had orchestrated weapons sales to terrorist organizations across 3 continents. When he was finally captured in 2008, the Justice Department discovered he'd been running his criminal empire through an elaborate network of shell companies, encrypted communications, and human couriers so well-trained that most didn't even know they were working for him. Arsenault was a ghost who manipulated people like chess pieces, always 3 moves ahead, always untouchable. Until he wasn't. "He's been here 6 years, Caldwell continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Hasn't spoken to anyone. Hasn't written a letter. Hasn't made a phone call. He just sits in that cell, completely silent, completely still. The guards say it's like watching a statue. But 2 weeks ago, something changed." "What changed?" Webb asked. "He started writing. Constantly. Page after page. Hour after hour. We screened everything according to protocol. It was all gibberish, stream of consciousness nonsense about philosophy, mathematics, poetry. Nothing flagged. Nothing suspicious. We let it through." Caldwell's hands clenched into fists. "But the letter you intercepted didn't come from his screened mail. That's what I can't explain. Every piece of paper that leaves this facility is accounted for. Every single one." Webb stepped closer to the cell door window. Inside, he could make out a figure sitting cross-legged on the concrete bed, back straight, hands resting on knees in perfect stillness. Even in the darkness, Webb could feel the man's presence, an intelligence that seemed to radiate through solid steel. "I need to talk to him," Webb said. "I can't authorize that. Arsenault hasn't had a visitor since his sentencing. No lawyers, no family, no interviews. He's not allowed human contact beyond essential personnel. Warden, if he's coordinating something from inside these walls, we need to know what it is. That countdown in the letter ends in 72 hours. We don't even know what we're counting down to." Caldwell's radio crackled. "Warden, we have a situation in medical. Officer down. Inmate attack in transport. We need you immediately." Her face went pale. "Impossible. We have no transport scheduled today. Every inmate is locked down." She grabbed her radio. "Which inmate? Who attacked?" The voice on the other end was shaking. "Ma'am, it's prisoner 04729-045. Ramon Vega. He was being moved for emergency medical evaluation." He shattered his toilet and used a porcelain shard to slash Officer Morrison's throat. "Morrison's alive but critical. Vega is barricaded in the medical examination room. He's demanding to speak to someone from the FBI. He says he has information about a conspiracy inside ADX. He says if we don't send someone in 5 minutes, he'll kill the nurse he's holding hostage." Webb and Caldwell ran through the corridors, boots pounding against concrete. Ramon Vega. Webb knew the name. Former cartel enforcer, responsible for at least 40 documented murders, probably 3 times that many in reality. Vega had been in ADX for 9 years, serving multiple life sentences. He was known for his explosive violence and complete unpredictability, a man who could smile while cutting your throat. When they reached the medical wing, tactical teams were already positioned outside the examination room. Through the small window, Webb could see Vega holding a young nurse against his chest, a jagged piece of porcelain pressed against her carotid artery. Blood from Officer Morrison painted the floor in spreading pools. "FBI. Let her go, Ramon," Webb shouted through the door. Vega's laugh was high and manic. "Finally, someone who can understand. They think they're so smart, keeping us locked in boxes, keeping us separated. But we're not alone, Agent. We're never alone. He talks to us. Through the walls, through the pipes, through the air itself. Victor speaks, and we listen." Webb's blood ran cold. "What is Victor planning, Ramon?" "Planning? Vega's eyes were wild, ecstatic. It's already done. You think those walls keep him contained? You think concrete and steel can stop a ghost? He's been out for months, Agent. Not his body, his mind. His beautiful, terrible mind. And in 72 hours, everyone will know. The countdown isn't for something he's going to do. It's for something he's already done. What has he done? Webb demanded. Vega pressed the shard harder against the nurse's neck. A trickle of blood ran down her skin. He's recruited soldiers. Not in here. Out there. In your world. People you trust. People who guard you. People who serve you. And when the clock hits 0, they'll all wake up and remember what he taught them. What he programmed into them during their visits, during their training, during their... The tactical team breached. Flashbang grenades exploded in white light and deafening sound. Vega dropped, for tranquilizer darts buried in his chest. The nurse collapsed, gasping, bleeding but alive. But as they dragged Vega away, still conscious, still laughing, he screamed one last thing that made Agent Webb's hands go numb. Check the guards, Agent. Check the warden. Check yourself. How do you know he hasn't already gotten to you? Webb turned to Caldwell. Her face was bone white, her hand trembling as she reached for her sidearm. Marcus, she whispered, using his first name for the first time. What if he's telling the truth? That's when the lights went out. Every single light in ADX Florence went dark. Emergency generators failed. Backup systems silent. 400 of America's most dangerous criminals locked in cells that suddenly had no electronic monitoring, no camera surveillance, no security systems. And in the absolute darkness, from cell H-17, Agent Webb heard something that stopped his heart. The sound of a cell door sliding open. The backup generators kicked in after 47 seconds. 47 seconds of absolute darkness in a facility designed never to go dark. When the emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in hellish red, Agent Webb's hand was already on his weapon. Tactical teams poured into H-Unit, rifles raised, voices shouting commands that echoed off concrete walls. But the shouting died when they reached cell H-17. The door was open. The cell was empty. Victor Arsenault was gone. Impossible, Caldwell breathed, her voice cracking for the first time. Those doors are controlled by 3 separate systems. Manual override requires simultaneous key turns from 2 different security stations on opposite ends of the facility. Even during a power failure, the magnetic locks default to secure. That door cannot open. It physically cannot open. But it had. And the ghost had walked out. Webb's mind raced through scenarios, training, protocols. Lockdown. Now. Every unit. Every corridor, every exit. Nobody moves. I want eyes on every camera, every monitor. Find him. The prison erupted into controlled chaos. Alarms wailed through corridors. Guards in riot gear flooded every wing. But as minutes became hours, a terrifying truth emerged. Victor Arsenault wasn't hiding in ADX Florence. He had never left his cell at all. When the tactical team finally entered H-17 with thermal imaging and full tactical gear, they found him sitting exactly where Agent Webb had seen him hours before. Cross-legged on his concrete bed, back straight, hands resting on his knees, eyes closed in perfect meditation. As if he'd never moved. As if the door had never opened. Infrared shows he's been in that position for at least 6 hours, the team leader reported. Body temperature, muscle tension. Everything indicates he hasn't moved. Sir, I don't think he ever left that cell. Webb stared through the small window at the motionless figure. Then what did we see? The door was open. I saw it open. Caldwell's radio crackled with reports flooding in from across the facility. Every cell door in H-Unit had registered as open for exactly 47 seconds during the blackout. Every single one. But when the lights returned, every door was sealed, every inmate accounted for, every prisoner exactly where they should be. It was as if the prison itself had hallucinated. Warden. A voice came through her radio. We've completed the camera review. You need to see this. In the security control room, screens showed footage from the blackout. The timestamp showed the exact moment the lights died. And in those 47 seconds of darkness, the infrared cameras had captured something that made Webb's blood turn to ice. Every inmate in H Unit had stood up simultaneously. 24 men in 24 separate cells, men who couldn't see each other, couldn't communicate, couldn't possibly coordinate, all rose to their feet at exactly the same moment. They walked to their cell doors in perfect unison. They placed their hands on the steel in identical positions. And they waited. When the lights returned, they all sat back down. Same moment. Same movement. Like puppets whose strings had been cut. "Jesus Christ," Caldwell whispered. "What did we just witness?" Webb's phone buzzed. A text from FBI headquarters, marked urgent. Critical. Denver field office reports suspicious activity at Federal Reserve Bank. Security guard found dead. Vault access codes changed. Guard's employment records show he completed corrections officer training at ADX Florence in 2019. Same training program as Officer Morrison, who was attacked today. 8 other graduates of that program have been flagged in last 24 hours for unusual behavior. Need immediate background on training instructor. Webb's hands shook as he pulled up the records. The Corrections Officer Training Program at ADX Florence from 2018 to 2020 had been overseen by a rotating staff of senior personnel, but there was one civilian consultant who had conducted specialized psychological resilience training for guards who would be working in H Unit. A consultant approved at the highest levels because of his expertise in managing high-risk individuals. The consultant's name was Dr. Victor Arsenault. Before his arrest, before his conviction, when he was still a ghost, still operating in shadows, still 3 moves ahead. He had been inside ADX Florence for 2 years, training the very guards who would one day lock him away, speaking to them for hours in closed sessions about psychological manipulation, about how the most dangerous criminals think, about how to resist their influence, or teaching them how to become sleeper agents without even knowing it. The countdown, Webb said aloud, pieces falling into sickening place. It's not for an attack. It's for activation. He programmed them years ago, planted triggers in their subconscious. The letter, the blackout, everything we've seen today, it's all been the activation sequence. In 72 hours, every person he trained will simultaneously execute whatever he programmed them to do. Federal Reserve employees. Prison guards. How many others? Police? Military? Intelligence personnel? Caldwell grabbed his arm. "We have to warn everyone. We have to stop them."
"How?"
Webb demanded. "We don't even know who they all are." His records show he consulted at 6 different federal facilities, trained hundreds of personnel. And even if we identify them, what do? Arrest people for crimes they haven't committed yet? For programming they don't even know exists? His phone buzzed again. Another message. Arsenault's cell has been searched. Hidden behind loose concrete. Handwritten journal. You need to read the last entry.
Now.
They ran back to H Unit. The journal was already bagged as evidence, but Webb read through the clear plastic, his heart sinking with every word written in precise, elegant handwriting. "To whoever finds this, know that I harbor no resentment toward my captors. This place was necessary. I needed silence. I needed isolation. I needed years with nothing but my own thoughts to perfect the final work. They believe they punished me by locking me away, but they gave me exactly what I required: time and an endless supply of broken, violent, desperate men whose minds were already shattered enough to accept new programming through nothing but whispers through pipes and patterns tapped on walls. The guards trained by my hand were the easy part. They trusted me. They opened their minds willingly. But the prisoners? They were my masterpiece. And now, all my pieces are in position. In 72 hours, the world will learn that you cannot contain an idea. You cannot imprison a thought. And you certainly cannot lock away a ghost." The entry was dated 4 days ago. The day before the letter was intercepted. Webb looked at Caldwell, then at the monitors showing 24 cells, 24 men sitting in perfect stillness. He never needed to escape. He's been free this entire time, living in their minds, controlling them like remote weapons. And we can't stop what's coming, because we don't even know what it is. Caldwell's face was ashen. So, what do we do? Before Webb could answer, every screen in the control room flickered. For just a moment, a message appeared on every monitor, in every security station, on every guard's radio display throughout ADX Florence. 47 hours remain. Check the mirrors. Check the faces. Check your own thoughts. How do you know they're yours? Sleep well, Warden. Sleep well, Agent Webb. Dream of ghosts. Then the screens returned to normal, showing nothing but silent cells and empty corridors. Agent Webb walked to the window, overlooking the Colorado wasteland. Somewhere out there, across America, hundreds of people were living their normal lives, completely unaware that inside their minds, a countdown was ticking toward zero. A countdown to orders they would follow without question, orders planted years ago by a man who had turned America's most secure prison into his personal training facility. They thought they had buried Victor Arsenault alive in a concrete tomb. But he had never been the prisoner. They had. And in 47 hours, his masterpiece would be complete. The Alcatraz of the Rockies stood silent in the desert night, a monument to the illusion of control, a fortress that had already fallen from within. Because the most dangerous prison in America had never been designed to keep Victor Arsenault contained. It had been designed, perfectly and precisely, to set him free.